Hi, welcome back to this YouTube channel. Today I have the starter off my 95 XP, and that's a 720 motor. It's a jet ski, two-stroke, but the starter this year did not start. I got a click from the solenoid, and I jumped the solenoid, and it didn't do anything. And it seemed like no contact. I didn't get any kind of spark when I put the wrench across the two electrodes or whatever, the posts. So I know that the electricity was being hung up and it wasn't allowing it to pass through this, so there was no reason for my jumping to work. So as you can see, this is pretty crudded up. It's been in there probably the whole life of it. And wow, yeah, there you go. So that's hurting right there. This one actually might need a new bearing. With what I just did, it might work now. I don't know, but it was kind of hung up. But I'm going to take it apart. There's brushes here. I have a new set of brushes. I'm going to install those, and then I may even do the bearing. And hopefully I have the right pieces. This looks like some kind of a says bearings for. So hopefully I got the right stuff. We'll see. It looks a little different from some of the other rebuild kits I've seen, but this is for a 720. I believe it's the same on all of these models. I'm not 100% sure. You have to own them all to be an expert at it, or you have to be a serviceman. I'm not a serviceman, but you're not going to find service people putting videos like this on the internet. It's kind of against their interests. So to all the professionals out there, anybody that's going to do this is going to do it anyway. It's really, I don't think this is going to hurt your business because you know what your clientele is like. So anyway, so here we go. 8mm, I'm getting this off, and there's a lock nut. And if this takes any longer, I'm going to have to edit the video. I'm just going to leave that right there. It'll come off with the rest. But you can see this is the inside of those two-strokes. They get pretty bad because they're just kind of pretty raw motor, but they're pretty neat. It's a big two-stroke. You hear a lot of two-strokes in the world, and they're weed whips and things like that. The bigger ones, they kind of push things that need to be light and have a lot of power, kind of like an ultralight airplane or anything like that. Those are all usually, there's a lot of newer ones with different motors, but for a long time they've been doing the Rotaxes, which is the same type of motor. So here we are. I have the pieces off, 8mm. Now I'm down to posts here. This thing is dirty as heck. It's just crazy. But once I get it out on the water and get some water in there, in the inside of the motor compartment, it'll blow it back out, and all of this oil is actually biodegradable, so it's just kind of like plant food. So now that that's off, I'm going to take this post. This is the post that is the positive lead. And boy, is that grimy. Looks like there's some silicone on there. Somebody put silicone on it. Maybe that's from the factory. I'm not going to say that. It's going in the trash pile. So now I'm guessing 10mm. Yep, good guess. Metric likes 10 and 14. They do like 12 sometimes. But you're not going to see a whole lot of 11s here and there, but 10, 12, 14, extremely common. So I'm doing this while trying to not hit my camera stand here. So if I look like I'm kind of getting in there a little crazy, it's for that reason. I'm also trying not to bung up my hands. I used to be a hand model. I did JCPenney, like the catalogs back in the 90s. So they said I had perfect hands except for that mole. They used to just put a little bit of cover up over that, and away I went. So but not too bad so far. So just to be sure about what I'm doing, it looks like I have a nut here. And what's nice is I can review this video if I have a problem. But even for everyone else, for the 95 XP Seadoo 720 motor, I think it's a 717 in reality, but this looks like the washer is attached to the nut. Then there's like a plastic piece here. It's like hard plastic on this side, and this is got a little recess here for the nut. And then that's it. Right down to metal. So that's pretty simple. That's nice. It's not like 4 layers. I've seen some other motors, the starters, where they would do like 4 layers right there, but this is just 2. So maybe it's possible this has been rebuilt before. I'm not sure, honestly. But you just take a rag to it, it looks totally different. I mean, this thing looked like it was from the Aztec era, but just wipe it off. And they do have complete replacements for like $45, and I was thinking about doing that. This one says made in Japan. I don't know if you've ever gotten fine china and you see the difference between the Japanese and the anywhere else in the world, say the Philippines or something. They really have really high quality. So something about the information is already there, what it takes to get this stuff done, metallurgy and everything. So it's not to knock any other competitors, but from what I've heard, and sometimes they steer you wrong, but from what I've heard, the rebuild kit on the stock OEM starter is the way to go. So now I'm going to take these nuts here off the posts. I think that's going to be the 10 again, or the 8. Yeah, there's the 8. I may edit out some of these small waiting periods here, but here I am with the 8. There we go. Boy, that one's been sitting for a while. Let's try this one. There we go. So this is a good job not to drink coffee too, just because, I mean, personally, I think for me, there's just a lot of aggravation that can come about if this doesn't go exactly perfect. The ironic thing is I am drinking coffee. It's been sitting since this morning. Never drank it. Anyway, back to the motor. I'm sure you don't care. Boy, it's got quite a number of threads on there. Looks like the post itself is starting to spin. Okay, so this stayed static and the post spun out. It looks like there's a seal right there. So that might be a replaceable seal. There's a little rubber. But there's the post, so I'm going to take that off and set that here. Let's see if this one comes out. Yep. Spins out by hand, that's not bad. Now, when I took this starter out, I took all of the exhaust off. I've seen people say that you can take it out without taking out the exhaust. And I had once tried to take the exhaust off before, but I got to one of the first 4 bolts you have to take off. I couldn't get one out. But this year, I was able to get them all out. And I took the exhaust out. And then I took the intake out. It has like 6 hex head bolts. And I got that out. And then this is just sitting there right in front of you where you can pull it out and look at it and see everything. So I figured, it was frustrating to get through the exhaust, getting it off, but at the same time, it's less frustrating once I get to the starter. So that's the route I went. Some people can do it blind and just go in there with long reach tools and get it out though. So here it is. Looks like there's a bearing right there. That's probably one I could replace. But as you can see, I'm not sure, I haven't checked the focus on this in a minute. But it's looking pretty burnt up. I don't know. There's still brush there. It's possible if I had turned this by hand, it would go for another year. So I'm going to take that out and look at it. So that's how it was. This is all pretty much symmetrical. It's going to be long ways, kind of like horizontal, with that sticking up and this brush going where it needs to go. But there's still brush there. So there's still motor life left. It's dirty, yeah. It's possible this spring is hung up. It smells like burnt electronics a little bit, like carbon. This spring could be at the bottom possibly, even though there's some brush left. It's possible that this spring would be, I don't know if you can see that. It's possible this spring doesn't have any more to go. So that one looks like it's all going to be self-contained. I don't have to mess with it. Might have to slip it in there. I don't know if you can see that, but the brush is not inside there yet. I got to put it in there. And this one is the one that was to the positive post. So it's good to look it over as soon as you get it out, have it on tape. I'm going to pull this out just for look-see. This is a little bit longhand. I know there's some faster videos out there, one or two maybe. But that looks like it. Okay, so I was saying this was up like this. It's not. It's supposed to be like that. Much like that. So honestly, I think it's any which way you can get this post and that to work in the slides. You know, that's what I was trying not to do, bump the camera. So this will go in there. This one looks like it just pushes right in there. That's that one. And the other one will do the same. I'll put it in like that. And it will push back against that spring. But they need to be pushed back. It's kind of like putting in rings on a piston. They need to be pushed back and then put onto the armature. And then they're going to sit on it and ride on that armature part. I think that's what you call it. The armature is the main magnetic portion here. And this is like a commutator, I think. I'm not sure. But this is the part where they contact. And then that livens the different coils inside. And they jump to the next one. And when it gets there, then it jumps to the one behind. And then it gets there, and then it jumps to the one behind. And when it turns, it switches. So this is going to be a brushed motor. Brushless, it's all done electronically. Now, these are all things you already know, but I was just putting it out there because it was at the tip of my tongue. So this needs to come off somehow. And it looks like there's lines to line it up here. And that's probably something I should have done, is marked it. But something tells me it doesn't really matter. You know, I'll have to go back on the tape and look at it. I'm going to look at the tape again. That's where I should have done is to... but you know what? It has these bolts that go through, and that's going to line this up. Looks like it has a couple indicators right there. it's possible that they're all just to be lined up right here. So anyway, I'll get to that. So as you've probably seen, sometimes teachers are learning as they go, so I just figured I'd put a video out there because there was only one other one. And it's nice to have a second opinion, or at least see it done twice. Or if you stumble on this one first, this can be all you need to know. So this one has a bearing in there. I wonder if I should replace that. It may help to just run it. So I'm going to call this a commutator. And as you can see, it's shining up with just a rag. I would normally be a little apprehensive about taking sandpaper to this, but I don't know how much a couple little shavings. I have 800 sandpaper. Here's some fantastic with bleach. Probably the wrong stuff, but I had this and this rag available. I think you could use like an eraser from a pencil. I don't know if you've ever had trains, like the electric train sets. Just the Fantastic cleaned it up pretty good. But a lot of times people will use an eraser for the electric train sets when they have carbon on them, and that'll clean it up. They'll just go around with an eraser and clean it off. At least that's what they do for, like, say if you're a kid and they don't want to give you too much dangerous stuff. But I do happen to have some 800 sandpaper. A lot of people might use 1,000, but I'm a real big fan of 800. If there was only one kind of sandpaper in the world, I would choose 800. It does enough work, but it's also smooth enough that it's kind of shiny. But it has kind of a real bite that some other papers don't have. It almost bites better than like really gritty stuff, depending on your surface. For metal, this really gets in there and hugs it and grabs, and when you know it's getting something done. And then when it's not grabbing anymore, you know to throw it away. And they're only good for like 2 or 3 minutes. A lot of people will sit there and keep going and keep going, and the sandpaper's burnt and done, and they're just still going, and it's a waste of time. But for like 2 or 3 minutes, this stuff is very good. Especially for like mold polishing and other things like that. Parts polishing if you do parts. In this instance, it's going to be commutator, armature. I'm not sure which is which. I think this is the armature and that's the commutator, but communicate. I don't know. If I'm wrong, the world will keep spinning. But we got to get this starter spinning, so I'm going to just keep rambling and keep working. It's a little longhand. Maybe it's a little long-winded, but hey. It's shining up. You know, I do sell on eBay. I have an eBay store. It's called GB Hatchery. You can buy clothes, shoes. It's pre-owned stuff, but it's not the type where it's worn out. It's like where they wore it. Maybe it wasn't their style. Maybe they have so much clothes. Maybe they just lost them. I don't know how I get them, but they're still good. In many instances, almost all. So nice that some sellers on eBay might even say new. But I'll go ahead and say pre-owned because I can't prove that they're new. But I have skates. Those are definitely pre-owned, but in very good shape. I have a nice pair of Missions right now. I have another one I'm going to list, actually. Really good Mission roller hockey skates. DVD movies. Video games. Usually retro games because they're easier to get to flip kind of thing. Anything new is usually covered by a larger warehouse. Much like Seller Warehouse, I often do an affiliate link with them. Seller Warehouse, I'll leave a link in the description to them. So I don't see how much of this I really need to do. I'm not trying to like do breaks here or anything. I think it's going to go. And then once they start riding, they're going to cut into it kind of nice, I think, over time. Unless they're zapping. But how much of this is kind of subjective, however much you want to do, in my opinion. I'm sure there's a jet ski shop boss that has a definitely certain way to do, and he might even put this on a lathe. I don't know. Maybe he would lathe them, or she. But these 95s are pretty old. What is it now? 2019, 95. So we're looking at like 24 years right now, coming up on 25 years. And it's amazing to be able to keep them going. But the technology has gotten to the point where it's changing, and if you want an old two-stroke, you got to get one from older. Because they've all kind of switched over to the four-strokes for fuel efficiency and power and reliability. Although they're running on ragged edge, and I don't know if the reliability is all that high. I think you get about 150 hours. But when you let them sit out at the lake and they're just sitting there, they tend to break down just sitting there because they're about 2 feet from the water in the sun, and there's really nothing that would keep them running well other than getting in there and doing what I'm doing. So I'm going to call that good. I'm liking that, actually. That's looking pretty nice. I could do more till it's just super shiny, but I'm thinking that was the most productive 90%, and the next 10% is going to take twice the work, so I'm not doing it. So with that said, I'm not sure how to take this Bendix off. So I'm going to go ahead and wipe my area. So if you don't have a jet ski, you can get all the satisfaction I have at a jet ski right here watching this video. Because this is what it's like. Now if you have a new one, you can always spend a couple $100 a month payment, and you get that first 150 hours. 150 screaming hours. Good. I don't know about it, so don't think I know. I haven't gotten on the new 300s, 300 horsepower ones. Mine's 85 horse. The next year was 110 horse, and they say that was really a sweet spot for these because they had a nice hull and it was good for racing, and a lot of the nice things were said about it. But I go for an hour and 10 minutes on this and tearing it up pretty good. It's a good fit for me. I like the 85 horsepower 720. You can always go bigger. As soon as you get to 800, then you should get a 920. As soon as you get 920, then you got to get one that's supercharged. Or you get 1100 and you got 3 carbs to redo, which is neat. If you have one, it's probably something that's it's a fun life to live. But I have a 720, so I'm going to live this life. And you know, they change the things every year, so as far as keeping up with the Joneses of jet skis, I'm just trying to keep mine going. So here's a bearing. It's not this bearing. This is a bearing as well. These might be pressed in, possibly. This could really be worse. I don't know that I need a new bearing necessarily. It was a little bit gummed up. This Bendix does not look good though. And it should, when I twist it, it should like move out. That's the whole point. So this thing's in bad shape. Jeez. Who would have knew? Well, I definitely don't want to hit it Maybe I'll hit it with some Fantastic. I used to make the mistake to take good quality tools and hit things with them like a hammer, but it's just not worth it. I've learned to get up and get the right tool. And yes, somebody told me that the first time I did it, but you gotta break a good couple C-clamps, or what do they call those, channel locks. Once you've ruined a couple channel locks, you're like, yeah, I don't think I want to do this anymore. So I do not know what to do here. Maybe I'll pry on it. A little pry. But normally when this turns on, this will spin out. I would hate to have to buy a new one after all of this. There we go. There we go. There we go. Haha. So this was stuck up like that, which is why I was having a hard time. Because I know when I was moving the motor over and it didn't feel good at all. It felt like it was trying to engage this. I could feel slop. It would kind of go one way and hit something and go that way. And I could turn it, but it was making a lot of noise. It didn't sound good at all. So now I got this going. This could really use like some oil or grease. So when this turns on, just the centrifugal, since this wants to stay due to momentum not being there, this will turn, this center shaft, and then this will flip out. It'll engage, and since it's engaging, it's still riding. But as soon as the motor catches up, this can turn faster, and then it will set back away from the flywheel, and the flywheel will be right here while it's running. And then that's why if you ever have like an older truck or something with a flywheel and all that, if you hit the starter while the engine's running, you hear that, you know, kind of, that's a bad sound to make. But when you hear that sound and it's going to go in there and go into a flywheel that's spinning at the engine RPM or whatever, and then you grind these gears up too much and you'll need a new starter, and then you might need a new flywheel. But that's on like a 350 motor. Probably a lot of newer motors also. So this Bendix might be pressed on, I'm not sure. But either way, it needs to be oiled and or greased. If I go out there and start it every day or every couple of days, it'll be okay. But if it sits for a while, it'll just start to get nasty. So anyway, I'm going to look at getting that off. Alright, so I looked around and I would need a Bendix puller to get this off. It's, I guess it's a blind hole puller, something that maybe would grab on back here and push here. I have a press in my basement. I could probably press that out. But honestly, it's just, I'm going to wing it. I mean, it's been there for 20 years. And if it needs anything, it needs this fogging oil, because it didn't get it last year. So that's going to be what I do. Fog oil it. See? That's like WD on steroids. WD-40. It does kind of want to get stuck out there, though. I would hate to have the problem again, honestly. The thing is I would have to wait for another bend. I would have to buy one and wait for it in the mail. And I just don't know if I got that in me right now. Halfway through the season, I want to get this thing going. Although I'd hate to do this job again. There we go. Well, yeah. Okay. A little bit of oil behind it does wonders. Holy smokes. Up here, it doesn't really do much. It's like cleaning it. So I usually use this between seasons. At the end of the season, you get it running. Make sure it's not going to overheat. There's water to it and everything like that. And then you give it like a decent amount of gas and start this going into where it wants to kill it because it can't burn it very well. And you do that for like 10 seconds. And at the end, you just kill it with that. You just leave it on. You just kind of squirt like intervals of it till it kind of chokes on it. And then at the end, you just kill it by just flooding it full of that oil. And that gets it all over inside the motor. And then you open up the spark plugs and you dust it into the cylinders too. And then everything's well oiled. And then there's just like an environment of enclosed oil. So all of this, it's kind of like humidity. I mean, it just goes everywhere. So the oil, this is like WD, and it just, you can see how fast it worked itself into this. I'm thinking that's good. That's good. Everything's still there. I can pull this metal out and put new metal back, but it's same design. And if it's working like that, well, it's got stuck right there. I could probably work it some more until it doesn't do that, but that's working. So I'm happy with that. There's a bearing there too. I'm hoping the oil takes care of that bearing because they did give me a replacement bearing that I honestly would have to press this off to get it to work, and I don't want to do all that. Not this late in the season. Now, if I'm ready for it next year and I have the parts waiting for me, I could do that. But I also have an 80cc motorized bike that I need to do upgrades to. I need to put a new cylinder in that. I got the parts sitting here for it. In fact, that's for my 80cc motorized bike. I broke the pin in that one. There's a pin right there, and it broke. I was having flooding problems. It may have hydraulic locked and broke that pin. I'm not sure. But that's a kind of a common thing from what I hear. I watched a couple videos, and the guy was like, "That's what it usually is." He said something like that. It's like he wasn't surprised that's what was broken, as usual. So it's my first break on the bike besides the carb. So I'm going to put that on there. I think I might put a hot muffler on it too. Just see how much performance I can get out of it. So I guess I'm going crazy with this oil. But that's something that's never going to get sitting down in there. It's never going to get that much oil. And it's loving it. It loves that. Because all it's been seeing is water. Water and corrosion. Okay, so now that that's done, that's as far as I'm going on this side. So basically I need to put it back together and put my new brushes on. So we did have a mark on this side. You know, in fact, I think I might wipe this out. I don't want too much floaties in there. I don't think oil is very conductive to electricity, so I'm going to use it as a cleaning agent. I know there's better ways and other ways, But there isn't a day of the week that this starter will not enjoy a little extra oil. I don't think it matters that this is very clean though. Just not way dirty. I don't know how anything would get in there. I guess that would all be corrosion, or that would be from the carbon of the brushes mainly. This is probably mostly just carbon. So is that perfect? Nope. But that's all right. Okay. So there's a mark here, right there. And then there's that. Whoops. Okay, so we lost these two rings. We're going to leave them off until I get this through. Alright. So that's on there. Put these on again. I'm going to clean this up a little. I get oil on this bearing. I could probably pop that bearing out some way. That might just be this. I think that's just a brass bushing. That side of it is not going to have the same amount of stresses that the front by the Bendix is going to have. This is way further out. It has way more leverage, which may be why they just put it on there. And the starter isn't really making the jet ski go. All it does is get it started, and then it goes back to relaxing, so to speak. It's not working then. It's along for the ride. So how many hours does the starter have on it? Probably less than an hour. So it's not really designed necessarily for longevity of high torque applications over time, just for getting the motor started. So that's cleaned up quite a bit with just some oil. So this one has a couple marks right there. So that one grabs. That one doesn't. So right along in between these two, there's a screw hole. And out here on this side, there's one that lines up with this. So I think we're going to call that lined up. I'm going to have to go double check this real quick. I might have to go back in my video and check. If this is correct, I would be having the positive on the opposite side of this extra. You have this flange, and there's extra, and the positive's on that side. I'm going to double check that right now before we go any further. Okay, having looked at my own photos, it looks like the positive terminal is right behind this. So it's going to want to be back here, however it fits. This can only go this way or that way, 180 degrees, because there's two holes up here that hold these bolts. One of them is right here by this, as you can see, that goes from here all the way back. So this is actually off 180 degrees, and I want to make sure I get that seal on there also. But this would be like that. So now that I know that, and I've got that information, and now you have that information, I can continue. Here's my two seals. I'm going to do these right now just because I see no reason to have this be wrong ever. Early bird gets the worm on this one, so I'm going to go ahead and put these on. Definitely know what they're for. They're definitely fatter. Haven't been squished yet. I don't know if you can see that. Aftermarket parts, I'm sure. It's nice that they make these. How many of these starters are out there and then a company puts this together? I'm sure this is a stock O-ring that they're buying from someone and just putting it in the kit, and the bearings and all this, but it's wonderful. This motor is probably used for a few different things in the world though, but what a nice thing to be able to get parts, because sometimes with the older jet skis you can't get parts to a point. At least I've heard that. They say, well, we can't get parts for that. And maybe the person you want to get you parts won't get them. But in this day and age, we have eBay, we have Amazon, we have each other in connection. So we can kind of get the parts now, so that's great. Anyway, this is next. I believe the first step is going to be putting this through the can. So I'm going to do that. It's really no harder than it was taking it apart. So they're giving me a whole stack of stuff here. And I almost want to revert back to the original because it looked a heck of a lot simpler. So this is similar. I may use this. This is similar to this original. Now we have another one, so they give me two. Now I have a stack of things. So I might use a few of these. These are like isolator pads. I think I might put these on this side. I'm going to put that on there. Put this on there. Boy, that just barely fits. That's the old one. There's like a... That's amazing. Okay. There you go. So that's quite a lot of isolator pads and whatnot. Now rather than use what they gave, I want to use the original. I like that. Personally, I'm just going to put that on there and then put this on. I don't know. That might not be correct. might not be right. This might need to go all the way through. You know, they don't really give you instructions. It seems like this should not touch this cap though, unless it's isolated somehow, because that makes this a positive. There wasn't anything on this when I took it off though. It's possible that that's actually isolated. It's possible that this is non-conducting to a point. It looks like graphite to me. Anyway, I'm going to throw this together in a stack and see what I get. I'm not even going to do these. I'm going to go right to what we had. That was this. And that's going to do it. So, this is not a shop build, but it gives you an idea of what you can do if you're not a shop, and that if you can do it like this and it works, then that should give you a bit of confidence knowing that, you know, there's guys out there that don't want to tell you to do it right. They don't want to tell you at all, and if they do tell you, it might be wrong just because that's their interest. But here I'm just a fellow hobbyist. I like the jet ski. I like to spend 10, 12 bucks in gas and go out flying for an hour and come home. And this is what it takes. So with that done, all I really have to do now is reinstall the brushes and the rear plate, and I should be good to go. And I need to make sure that this lines up with that to a point. It's on the same side. So I saw someone else do this, and I just watched their video just because I wanted something to go on. Because I'm sure why you're watching mine. But this guy's got to go in here. They say it's a real pain. And I don't want to break my new parts. But I want to get this brush in there. So that's there. I have two brushes. Looks Looks like that kind of rides on this can to a point. It's the right diameter to just ride on it. Now hopefully I can put the shaft right here and press it into those and then go in. But it could be challenging. If it's not done right, it will not work. Boy, that's going to be tough. I'm sure there's a right way and a wrong way to do this. And there's any old way. Almost feel like using this tool here. There we go. So now you can see visually, and it kind of seats a little bit down here. It's going to ride. Now it looks like there's kind of a part here that I think was going to take this through it, and that will hold that all steady. I'm taking this one down through here. There's like a line right there. I have my new seals on. Everything's oiled nicely. The armature has a lot of magnetism, so they usually want to take the can and pull it to the side kind of thing until you get everything tight. Then it will be in there kind of floating in the middle. with bearings holding it there. There's something just clicked. I'll do a little bit more over here. There. I kind of got past something right there and pushed everything where it needs to go. So I would have liked for this to be a complete and total rebuild, but I'm thinking 4 out of 5 of them are just to get some oil in them, get the Bendix worked in, get some new brushes on it, and put it back in. I think that's pretty common, because I think I might get a few years out of it, especially with all that oil that's just impregnated in it now, because it has nowhere to go. It's all sealed in there. So it's kind of like a bad cellmate. You know, I should have replaced those seals. Oh well. It's a done deal. I'm done. If you do this and you want to replace those seals, I recommend it. And that's something I should have done. But I'm thinking this is going to work. So I'm going to get some juice and see if I got my starter back. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to give it a test. Whoa, that's got some torque. I don't know if you saw that. Getting kind of a bad connection, I think, here. These are really bad spark plugs. But I can tell you that a direct short on this is some pretty big deal. So that's working. You can see the Bendix come out. Doesn't sound like awesome or anything, but I think it's going to start my jet. So that concludes my video. I hope you liked it. I know it was a little bit doing what we can when we can and not doing what I can't, but that's what you do with these. And they give you a lot of parts. If you do a complete rebuild, you're going to need a few extra tools. I was hoping to be able to do that, but I didn't want to press out that Bendix. And it really works. I just put some oil on it and worked it in, and I don't see a problem with it. So I hope you liked the video. I'm going to do some more on my 80cc bike in the next week or so. And if you'd like to like and subscribe. And also, don't forget, I sell on eBay, GB Hatchery, and I have an affiliate, Seller Warehouse. I will leave a link in the description to both. And check back for my 80cc motorized bike stuff. Thanks for watching.